Summer Carnival 92 Recca. This was a game created for a shooter competition aptly named Summer Carnival in the year 1992. Because this is a competition cart, very few legitimate copies were ever produced and tend to fetch a very high price. Now the thing about Recca that makes it so noteworthy, outside of its sheer rarity and cost, is the fact that this game is so processor heavy. It's a vertical scrolling shmup that is pretty intense in terms of number of sprites on screen, as well as overall game speed. Now, I know what you're thinking looking at this footage. Okay, there might be a bunch of enemies on screen, but it doesn't look all that unbelievably fast. Well, I haven't been entirely honest with you up to this point. I've actually slowed down the footage just so that you could make sense of what you're watching. But, for the sake of making this legitimate, let's speed it up to normal speed. And now it looks a hell of a lot less manageable to play, now doesn't it? Yeah, that's the thing about Recca. There's an insane number of enemies and bullets on screen at any one point, and more often than not while playing it, I was often sort of freaking out over the fact that I have no idea what's going on, nor do I have any idea how I'm surviving it. And that's kind of the thing about this game. If you want to play it well, you either have to play it so well that you've memorized all the bullet patterns, or you have to really trust your gut, because flying on a conscious level in this game is almost impossible, I've felt. Now the gameplay itself is fairly basic for a vertical scrolling shmup. You've got 5 different weapons, and these weapons can be upgraded by picking up the same weapon pickups over and over, like in many shmups. There's also an option system with many different types of options you can pick up, from ones that will shoot in opposite directions of your ship to ones that will rotate around your ship, shooting everything in that direction. These various different weapon and option customizations lend themselves to giving you a greater control of the action, which is absolutely necessary if you want to play this game well, just because of how hectic it is. Now, this game does have a bomb feature, like many shmups, but unlike them, this one can't really be used to hide behind in case you're bad. In most games, you could just drop a bomb and suddenly you're kind of invincible for a little while. In this game, not so much, because the bombs themselves don't cover the entire screen. They don't even cover all that much of the screen. But more importantly, in order to use a bomb, you have to stop firing for 2 or 3 seconds before the bomb activates. In short, your bomb is powered by your weapon, and you have to essentially make the judgment call, yes, I can survive an extra 3 seconds without shooting, or no, I can't, I gotta keep shooting. This creates a great dynamic of risk-reward for using the bombs. And more often than not, I found myself just sticking to the guns just because I needed to just hang on a little bit longer. And that's the thing about Recca. It has an insane difficulty curve. Like, I've heard people describe this game as impossible. And I can really see why. Like, I'm not particularly good at these games, but I couldn't even beat level 2. Now, overall, this game does have 4 main levels, but once you beat the game, you unlock a second run through the game, which is kind of like a remix mode. And as I understand, things are even harder there, as well as shuffling some of the giant screen-sized bosses you're going to have to fight. So yes, not only do you have to be good to beat the game, you have to be insanely good to beat the game's second loop. On top of that, this game has a score attack mode and a time attack mode, as well as a bunch of other hidden modes which are only unlockable through codes on the front menu. And for a shmup that only has 4 levels, that is an insane amount of different options and replayability through the gameplay, which is fantastic. The presentation to this game, at this point you should notice, is kind of insane. I mean, sitting here and watching all this footage back, I'm still having trouble just recognizing the music and the visuals, but the visuals are incredibly fast-paced, and it's really surprising that the hardware can even put up with this. Like, you can hear it grunting and squealing under all this pressure, and yet it still pulls it off like a champ. And the soundtrack, while it's hard to pay attention to without, getting yourself killed, is fairly fast-paced and works really well for what it's trying to do. Now, as we all know, Recca is a rare game. It's a competition card. They kind of all are. But, fortunately, this was actually released internationally for the 3DS. And I was lucky enough to actually find this on not 1, but 2 different multi-carts I've bought. So, It's certainly available, but you might have to look a little bit harder for it. And I think if you like shmups in any capacity, you have to play this game just to see how insane it is. Just seeing how far this pushes the NES Famicom software is just something worth seeing on its own. If you can get your hands on Recca, I highly recommend it, because it is fantastic.